Well, oh, well, Wolves Nation. Welcome to the Daily Wolves courtside. I'm your host, Evan. We're here with Duncan, Tim, Jack. All the boys came to talk the Ayo Dosunmo trade, the big news that hits Tim Conley. He finally strikes after everyone was waiting around like that meme where the guy's poking the stick to do something. He finally goes out and makes a deal, shuts up a lot of fans, hopefully. But Tim Conley's a smart GM, and we're going to get into tons of things on the show, whether we think it's a good move, what this means moving forward for the Timberwolves, how close were they on Giannis, all that and more on today's show. I guess just to start off, guys, how are you feeling about the trade? How we feeling, boys?
Tim, take the floor on this. You've been pushing it for so long on the Ayo side of things, so I think this is your moment.
You know, Ayo Dosunmo, if you were to walk back about 2 weeks and ask me what an ideal deadline is, it's grabbing a guy like Ayo Dosunmo. Obviously there's some big game hunting. I think the Wolves laid a lot of groundwork for a potential future deal. Very similar to what happened last year with KD at the deadline. We just didn't hear about the rumors. And we didn't hear about the rumors last year because the Giannis deal is so complicated. We're just hearing about stuff from other teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we laid some groundwork, but back to reality in terms of what this Timberwolves team we needed a seventh man. We needed a guy who can plug multiple holes. We needed a ball handler, another defender who could take guard matchups. And we also needed a bench scorer for our 23rd ranked scoring bench.
Mm-hmm.
Ayo Dosunmo solves all three options. He is an absolute utility knife. He can be a point guard. He can play wing. He's also a combo guard, can put the ball on the deck, uses gravity to create for teammates. I wouldn't say he's like a great primary initiator, but he can do it in a pinch. And I think he can do it at a better level than Na could when he was here. Granted, Na's exploded on that this year. Na is Nickeil Alexander-Walker for the listeners out there. So ideal move. I think the Wolves, they were in a cap bind last year, could not quite re-sign Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We can re-sign Ayo Dosunmo. That is the primary reason why I love this deal. This is not just picking up a guy for the bench and sending it on a rental. This is a person that's probably going to wear a Wolves uniform for the next 3 to 5 years. And if it's less than that, it's because he's a value contract that we move in another trade. So love the AO pick. I could go on all day. I'm going to pass it off to one of you guys here.
Yeah, I mean, I can go next.
Go for it.
I couldn't agree more. Sorry, Duncan. Everybody's just so excited about Ayo. Everybody wants to jump in and talk about him. Tim, I think you said if you went back 2 weeks and asked you who an ideal guy would be at the deadline, you'd say Ayo. I mean, there's concrete evidence of you saying just that. I mean, you've been blowing up the group chat with trades for Ayo. He's been a target of ours. Ironic that so many of our most desired targets were Chicago Bulls guards. It was Kobe White, it was Ayo, it was Trey Jones. So that was just kind of a funny coincidence, it felt like. But Ayo, getting a guy like him, getting a guy who's scoring 15 points a game, shooting 51-45 from the field and from three for two players who weren't playing at all for us anymore, Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller. I know the deal is still being finalized. We're not quite sure exactly what the terms are going to end up being, but adding a guy who's that impactful, that effective on offense for two guys who weren't getting any minutes at all when we've seen this bench struggle. I mean, last night against Toronto, great game from Nas, incredible game from Bones, but that's what it took to squeak by the Toronto Raptors, who are a good team. We've been playing really well. Obviously, Toronto, a house of horrors for us. So we knew it was going to be a lot of work to get that win, but that's what it's been taking from us from the bench to win games lately and to win games all year. To add a guy like this for two players who weren't playing at all, weren't producing at all, it could be such an impactful move for a team that's already so close, a team that's already so good. Everyone wants the big splash trade, the Giannis. Adding a superstar is so, it's so enticing, but these are the kind of moves that make such a big difference for teams that are already so close. I mean, three games ago against the Miami Heat, Ayo had 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. We just added a guy who's capable of that. That's massive for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I cannot wait for his first game in a Timberwolves jersey.
What about you, get Duncan?
Yeah,
What
I
do
mean,
you think?
he's having a career year, right? And that's kind of, you're getting somebody at his peak for 4 second-round picks, a guy that isn't going to play for you, and Rob Dillingham anymore, and Lenny, who, yeah, he's a figure of our imagination with Lenny. So it's you got great value out of this. Second-round picks are just kind of feel worthless now. I remember when Jay Crowder was traded for like 8 of them that one time. But yeah, it's a good fit. I mean, he can shoot the ball. He's going to be a perfect fit next to Anthony Edwards. He can initiate the offense for Anthony to give him breaks, and he can probably initiate with Bones in tandem. He's a great defender. I was a huge fan of him when he was in college at Illinois, just due to how much talented he was in comparison. And it seems like that talent has finally gotten to the point where he is just dominating for the Bulls at that point, at the level that he needs to be at. So I like the fit. I think it's a long-term fit too, because he's only 26 years old. He kind of fits right into the timeline of what we're looking for. And kind of to Tim's points, he's going to be in a Wolves jersey because we have the bird rights now 3 more years, 4 more years now. So it's adding another layer to the long-term outlook of what they want to do with Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Anthony Edwards. So love the long-term fit. I love the fit right now. Kind of gives me, if he can be a little pest defensively, which I know he's a good defender, if he can get to that Caruso vibes, maybe he can kind of be that type of fit for us and the Wolves, and definitely replace Noah, or help replace what he was bringing.
I think Ayo's comparable to what Dante DiVincenzo does. I put that out, but I want people to hear that, in the factor that, Dante does a lot of things that don't show up on a stat sheet always. Or you look at the box score at the end and he might only have 10 points, but he has 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Like, he kind of goes all over the board. And if he's not always scoring, he's impacting the game. I think that's what you're going to see from Ayo. I'm not sure he's like an elite defender, what people kind of make like a lot. I hear a lot of talk right now, like the Wolves are getting this like 2-way guy who can come in and play like elite defense. And I don't think that's the case, just from like his play so far. I think he's an okay defender. He can improve on that, but I like his size. I like the versatility. I like, again, kind of like Dante, where some nights he's really good, some nights he's okay, or he gets blown by. I expect that from Ayo, but he's definitely a scorer. He's definitely consistent this year. Like you said, 15 points a game. He's shooting 45% from 3. Absolutely incredible. And the kid is just getting better and better every single year. He was drafted with the 38th pick from the Chicago Bulls, and he proved everybody wrong who didn't take him. And he just works hard. He comes in. If you go look up after this recording, you can go look it up. He's just like, his story is incredible of how he got where he got to. He grew up in Chicago and in a rough area, and lost his brother when they were young, and in a shooting, and like it changed his whole life, and all this stuff that he does now for his brother and his family, and just making out of Chicago how difficult it is. And he looked up to like Derrick Rose and the Chicago Bulls, and how D Rose got out of everything, and then goes to Illinois to play basketball as a local kid, and gets drafted by his hometown team, and just all these things that this kid went through built him for today and for the moment. And he's an incredibly humble guy. He cares about his family. He's hardworking again, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to keep going. And he's talked about it even in his press conferences this year with the Chicago Bulls. I can impact the team even if I'm coming off the bench. I'm going to always find a way to go out there and make an impact, whatever the team needs. And that's the kind of player Ayo is, right? He talks about shooting a lot of shots from 3. And he's a knockdown shooter. He can drive in the ball. He can pass. He can play make. He's going to defend. He's going to do everything and all the little things. Like, Ayo's that kind of player. You're getting a dog. Literally, that's what the Wolves are getting. They're getting another Dante, and that's something this team needs. That toughness, something they were missing with Nikhil, and that's something I just wanted to bring up. And I'm incredibly excited to get Ayo and see him in a Wolves uniform. I think Minnesota fans are going to absolutely fall in love with this kid. Like you said, he's only 26 years old, Duncan. That's something that's so exciting. If you re-sign him on a controllable contract, he's going to be playing his prime years of basketball in a Timberwolves uniform. And then you're pairing that alongside of the guys who match his age group in Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Anthony Edwards. It really sets you up for this team's core. And then you have options, right, where you can pivot in the future. Maybe you go for a trade this summer, which I think they still will do and explore. And yeah, man, I'm really, really excited to see this guy in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. Tim, let's go into the Giannis stuff, man, a little bit. Let's touch on it.
Yeah.
Because I know people on here probably, there's a mixed emotions that are people listening this back. There's people that are probably like, who the hell is this Ayo guy? He's, you know, and then there's probably guys that they're, you know, like they're okay with it, right? They're really excited. They understand sometimes that Ayo is a basketball player. If you really are a hoops guy, you know how big Ayo is. But Giannis, man, the vibe was Minnesota was, you know, seriously interested in Giannis. And that was kind of what was reported by Shams. Again, kind of baited everybody with ESPN, just constantly hounding it, making it sound like he was going to get moved. That's their job. But at the end of the day, obviously the deal doesn't get done. How do you feel about the Giannis trade talk and everything that's been going on, man?
Yeah. You know, I think it's going to be something that pivots to the offseason. I think that they, over the last month, have had a great opportunity to see where their core guys are at in terms of market value. That's useful information. You can take that now, and we're going to have a playoff run with guys like Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, where they can put together a solid playoff showing. All of a sudden, you can come back in the summer and maybe have a little bit more validity to these guys that you've been gauging the market for. So the really cool thing about Ayo, I don't think it impedes our ability to be able to go shop for a star, whether it's Giannis or somebody else. It's very minimal. At most, a Rob Dillingham or Leonard Miller is kind of a toss-in sweetener. I don't think it impacts our ability to go get Giannis. That trade's all about getting first-round picks and attaching them to Jaden McDaniels. I think the Wolves laid some groundwork. They're probably going to revisit it, but they found a way to double down on this year, which is something I think they needed to do. They needed a seventh man. I think relying on Terrence Shannon Jr. to figure out his foot injury is risky. So the Wolves just mitigated a ton of risk, and they did so without blocking very many pathways this summer. All those pathways remain open.
So many pathways this summer. Jack, man, how are you feeling about not getting Giannis? Was this the right move, or do you feel that Giannis would have been a game changer? Maybe that was the route to go. Like, what would you tell fans that are listening?
It feels so non-committal to straddle the fence, but I was so torn between, you know, giving up the farm, giving up Jaden McDaniels, beloved, blossoming player. You know, every single one of the Timberwolves fans that I talk to, you know, they all are fully aware of how good Giannis is, and the overwhelming sentiment was, I don't know if we can part ways with Jaden. I mean, you see Duncan's hat right now. Everybody's rocking the Jaden hat. Everybody loves Jaden, and he was balling out during all those trade rumors as well. So I was very nervous about the prospect of giving away Jaden. You know, I don't know if it's going to be Randall, Rudy, draft capital if it ends up being in the summer. It made me nervous for a guy who's 31 years old and has a calf injury. Who knows how real that calf injury really is, but calf injuries in the NBA right now are probably the dirtiest word in the league. You know, somebody with a calf injury that turns into an Achilles. You've got a 31-year-old who all of a sudden is 32, 33 when they're coming back from the Achilles injury. Yeah, that's terrifying. That being said, Giannis is a top 3 player in the NBA, and I think you do have to make really tough concessions and decisions to pick up a player like that. But we've seen teams stand pat with all their assets, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, and keep what they've got and not overpay and develop guys, draft guys, make moves in the margins. I mean, that's what they did last year. They picked up Hartenstein and Caruso, and it ended up turning them into a juggernaut last year. You know, maybe that's our Ayo, and then maybe in the offseason we get our Hartenstein. You know, that feels like the more prudent route to go than to sell the farm, get rid of beloved players who are blossoming and in their athletic prime, still reaching their athletic prime, like Jaden McDaniels. I feel almost relieved that we didn't go get Giannis and make such an earth-shattering move. I mean, we've been traumatized by these bombs from Tim Connolly the last couple of years with the Rudy trade and the Cat trade, and it's like you can't relax as a Timberwolves fan right now. Now they've all been successful, so in Tim we trust. If he went out and made a move for Giannis, I would have been all on board. I mean, you put Giannis in a Timberwolves jersey, who's not going to be excited about that? But my overwhelming feeling right now is that I'm relieved that we've kept our core intact. We've made a move in the margin to add somebody who I think can be as impactful as Ayo. And we've got some flexibility still to add somebody in the buyout market. Personally, you know, I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more, dive into that market a little bit. But I'd love to see them re-add Mike Conley now that he's been traded again, just for vibes and for leadership. And I think we'd still have a little bit of flexibility. We'll have to check with our capologist, Tim, but I think we'd still have a little bit of flexibility to add somebody else in the buyout market as well. I think that's maybe more impactful than what the Giannis trade would have done for us, certainly for this year. And the pathways are still open in the summer, like Tim said.
100%. I think, Duncan, I'm going to flip it over to you in a second, man. But I just wanted to speak on to that Kobe White. I was happy we didn't make the Kobe White deal, because Kobe just, like, in order to, I feel like Ayo is what I really wanted in a player, like a wing who can score, and then they can pursue that other position later. I just felt like Kobe was going to be more expensive in the future versus what Ayo's going to get. And I just thought this way Minnesota can keep their guys, sign Ayo Dosunmo in the future, instead of going for a Kobe White, potentially taking a rental. And then potentially, if you do decide you want to keep Kobe in the future, then you're moving players in order to do that on top of that. So I just really like the Ayo pickup. I think it's with the Rob Dillingham thing. Tim, you can vouch for me. I was messaging you way ahead of time on Rob Dillingham and telling you things about him, right? Like the back line. Yeah.
Yep, last summer.
Yep. I like just didn't want to put it out for everyone to see and just like on the internet, but basically just things that I had heard about Rob Dillingham in the back line with the team. They, like, Rob did work hard, everything like that, but there were tons of question marks with Rob going way back to last season that I had heard from people. And take that for whatever you want or whatever you will. But pretty much everything I've told whoever I have told, they would probably vouch for me that they were accurate things. So it just wasn't working out with Rob. I think too, he wasn't going to play in the future. And so then you risk Rob's value dropping even more, because then if they don't trade him at the deadline, well, now all teams at the end of the season, if he doesn't play, they know that he just doesn't have a place in this team and he has just no trade value. Now they moved him this deadline. He had a little bit of value. You can sell a team a little bit on the upside. There's a little bit of a desire to take Rob Dillingham. And there you go. You go out and you use him in a trade, especially with the salary. He's probably going to, score a bunch of points in Chicago. That's what he is. He's a really talented player. He just didn't have a place on this team. And sometimes that's just where you get drafted and you can't help it. And it's development and it's all those things and the right coaching staff. But I think like all the guys like Rob, his teammates, they loved Rob. It's not really one of those things. There's some other stuff that was going on in the back, but that's okay. Other than that, happy for Rob. He gets a new start. The Wolves get a new start. Now we don't have to worry about that. And I think it's a win-win for Rob's camp and for the Wolves side of things. I put this out this morning too. Send it in to somebody. I was texting back and forth. This was early AM. I said, they're pursuing Giannis from what I hear. But it's Milwaukee that is pushing the agenda about the Wolves being so aggressive. This is coming from the Milwaukee camp. They're trying to get the Wolves to bring their offer up. That is what I sent somebody this morning who was asking about it. That's why I didn't think the deal was ultimately going to get done. I just think Minnesota, I think the Bucks too, we're going to hold on to them to get more value. I think they were just hoping these teams were going to just throw everything at them. I don't think they did. I just don't think these teams had what was necessary. A lot of these teams, right? And so like the Golden State offer, guys, was like all the picks, but then you're not really getting great blue chip players. Minnesota had all these vets, but not a lot of picks. And there was just all these hoops. It would have been at least a 4-team deal if Minnesota was going to go in here. And then same thing with Miami. They weren't blown away by Miami's offer. Like the offers were there. It's just the Bucks didn't take them. Again, when you see these things in the media, this is like not the Timberwolves side of things. From what I understood is like Minnesota was not pushing this. This wasn't like leaks coming from Minnesota trying to get the Bucks price down. This is coming from everybody else, like the Bucks side, the agenda of they're trying to raise their price so that somebody, whether it was Miami, Minnesota, Golden State, whoever, their values they're gonna come in and bid more. And that's just how the NBA works. This is, again, a lot of things are smoke screens, a lot of things are aggravated. And this can be, falsely put out there, but take this, I always say, take this for whatever you want. I'm not a reporter. I don't claim to be a reporter. That is just, what I feel going around here. And Duncan, I'm gonna flip it over to you after that long interlude there, man. They move to the buyout market next, potentially. That's probably where they're headed. They're gonna have a couple roster spots going up, man. Mike Conley has been rumored to potentially be coming back around the league. They believe he might be coming back to Minnesota. That is what I've heard as well. That it's a high likelihood. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again. How would you feel about Mike coming back? And how do you see Tim Conley as a GM if he this whole time maneuvered that cap just like that? That's incredible, man.
He has been a magician for this team for so long. I think one of the things, just to quickly touch back on that Giannis point, is you saw what we gave up for Rudy Gobert. In the moment, everybody was like, that's so much. What are we doing? Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. We have gone to 2 Western Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. That was the right move. 10 out of 10. And the picks are the picks. The players, they're not even that special. And he saw with the Giannis thing that this was probably too much, and it was probably going to hamstring the Timberwolves moving forward. So you look back at what he's done in the past and how much he gave up and what people freaked out about. He probably realized it was too much, and this team is better moving forward, especially right now and trying to win a championship this year with winning within the margins, getting a guy like Ayo to help with the depth and go from there. With that being said, bring back Conley, man. Like, bring back Mike. The reality of the situation is I don't hope he plays more than 5 minutes. I hope he gets one stint if that's really it. I think his skills have definitely decreased and he's gotten older. But Anthony loves him. And if you can just bring him back on a minimum deal, I think that is great for the locker room. And I think we all take it really to heart when he said we want to win one for Bite last year. And I think the reality of the situation is that Ant wants to win one for Bite. And if he can bring him back, I think he talked to Dane last night and even said, like, yeah, we want Bite back. If you're listening to this, Bite, like, we want you. So yeah, that'd be great. I would, you hear the other rumors on the buyout market of players that might be available. I think that's where you get greedy, right? You start looking at these other guys that, hey, maybe DeMar DeRozan is out there, and that's where you get really greedy. And you're like, are we the team where DeMar's like championship ring hunting because he knows he's not a fit with OKC? He knows he's not a fit with the Lakers because they're not going anywhere because their star player doesn't play defense and their other star players father time. So yeah, that's where I start to get a little antsy on, is like, ooh, come on, let's see what we can get with one of these, fringe all-star guys that are aging, and maybe, they'd be a perfect fit to what we're looking for. Hey, 20 minutes a night. We'll reduce some other minutes from other players like Rudy Gobert, just to, and things like that. But that's where I start to get a little antsy about. And I think there's a very realistic scenario this year. If guys like Giannis are saying, I want to play for the Timberwolves. So what's for DeMar DeRozan or some other buyout candidate to not be like, yeah, I want to play for the Timberwolves? So I start to get really antsy for that. I do think Mike Conley will be back in a Timberwolves uniform. I don't think anybody's going to offer him real PT on a championship team. So I would assume he would want to come back and kind of be the captain that helps run the ship with Ant.
Tim, you're the cap guy, man. You're the numbers guy over here. For fans watching, how realistic would it be to add like Mike Conley again? What's the contract kind of looking like if they were to bring him back? How much money do the Timberwolves kind of have to play around with right now? You know what I mean? Like, what's it looking like in the buyout market? Because they're gonna have a couple roster spots open. Do they bring just Mike Conley or just one player? Do they go for? Can they bring in two players on the buyout market? There's going to be Chris Middleton, DeMar DeRozan, guys like that. Kyle Anderson, a beloved player here, familiar with Chris Finch. Maybe get the gang back together with Mike and Kyle. But I guess, how are you feeling about this, man?
Yeah. So one thing I just want to put out is I would not be surprised if the Timberwolves tell Mike to go take a vacation for a bit. Reason being, the Timberwolves have 1.5 million in space in the first apron. And how the buyout market works are veteran minimums are prorated based on the league date. So right now we're probably in the vicinity about 900K per contract. That goes down by the day. So it would not surprise me if we hold off on maybe signing Mike Conley, bringing him back until maybe after the All-Star break, because then that cap hit might be in the 800K. And why that's important, if we maybe go out and sign like a Chris Middleton, maybe somebody who we're targeting to help instantly, you want to make sure you can get them first. And I'm sure the Timberwolves are in contact with Mike Conley's agent and he's up to speed and he could probably use a midseason vacation. So it wouldn't surprise me if they hold off for a couple weeks and maybe wait till they can fit 2 buyout minimums and stay under the first apron. But they can afford to. Ultimately, if they just want to if they don't want to play games, I don't blame them. If you were to tell me a week ago that our deadline is turning Mike from 10.7 million into a minimum and getting Ayo, I'd be really happy. But the fact is, there is a pathway where they could sit on it for a couple weeks. We do have 13 people on the roster. We have 2 weeks to be able to get that to 14. So I'd expect us to sign somebody within 2 weeks. It wouldn't surprise me if that second signing drifts into March, just to make sure we have enough flexibility. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we don't sign anybody until guaranteeing Johnny Juzang on the last day of the regular season. That's probably the most realistic, signing Mike and waiting for the last day of the regular season to sign Juzang.
Yeah, I could see Juzang even getting signed earlier than that. And then they go out and they get like Mike or whoever, fill that one spot with somebody, and they just convert Juzang's contract. I think they like what he can do. So, and he's a shooter, and you can't have, always, when you go into the playoffs, you want 3-point shooting or the end of the year. So definitely I could see that being a possibility. But for fans that are like, I got asked this question today a bunch, like, do we think there's going to be another big move before the deadline? Obviously, most fans are going to be hearing this when the deadline's expiring, but I do not. I think it is the buyout market. I think at this point, with what Minnesota has done, this is it. And now everybody should know that the Giannis ship has sailed. I do still really firmly believe, I kept getting asked this question too, like, you don't think they're going to make a big move at all? We never make a big move, blah, 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 the usual. But I really do think they're going to go big game hunting this summer. Like, if I were going to, if you were going to remember one thing from this show, remember that sentence. I think they are going to go out big game hunting this summer. That does not mean it's going to be Giannis, even though they're probably going to be in those conversations. Naturally so, when Giannis wants to come and play with Anthony Edwards. And then this summer he has more control of where he can demand to be traded to, which is, that could help Minnesota.
Yeah.
I still always firmly believe Tim Conley makes the moves we do not see coming for the big time move. I still think it's going to be a move out of left field for some star player. I don't know what it will be. And there's just so many things, guys, you can do this summer. That is why all their books line up this summer. There are tons of guys going on expiring deals. Like Rudy Gobert's contract is going to be easy to move. Julius Randle, Naz Reid has movable contracts. And these are all going to, like, everything just sets how it is this summer. And then you get those 2 additional first-round picks Minnesota can move in a deal. It really this summer will open up an opportunity to pretty much pivot, and they'll have now the ammo where they could go for most stars in the league if they desired. And so that's the piece where I think Minnesota, just by how Anthony Edwards is going to his prime, all the books line up, that's when Minnesota will push their chips in, most likely, make a big move. Don't know what that will be, but we'll be covering it. And that's when I would get excited if you're a Wolves fan, is this offseason. You should expect some big, big rumors, and it's going to be big game hunting for Tim Conley and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do we got
Well-
anything else to add, boys, before we kind of wrap up in a few minutes?
Yeah, I'll add on
Go
that.
ahead.
It feels like it's one last push with Julius and Rudy, right? Like
Yeah.
we gave them last year, this year together, and let's go get it, right? Like you guys it's a super talented roster. This is an insanely talented roster from the starting 5 to now 3 players on the bench. So they got one last run at it, and there's no shame in pivoting this summer. Those 2 guys are studs, and they're going to end up. One of them or both of them might end up on different teams, and they're going to help improve this roster, is my guess. But I'm happy that they're going to get one last shot at it against the OKCs and against the rising Spurs and obviously the Nuggets as well. So it should be fun to watch this last push.
It's going to be a ton of fun. You got something to add, Tim, before we get out?
Absolutely. I get it. We just got swept away in Giannis trade talk. People got excited for the last 2 weeks. But what I just want to zero the conversation back to is Ant's 24. We do not need to make that all-in move right now. It's really fun to think about. But the fact is, this is still a really good team that we just patched up with a very, very good rotation player. We do not need to make that all-star move this deadline. It can be this summer. It can even be next deadline. The fact is now we have a lot more time to see what happens with this core and some flexibility this summer to make it happen. And then secondly, Ayo Dosunmo, he's somebody that we can re-sign. He's eligible for a veteran extension of 3 years, $52 million. That is $17.3 million per year on average. So in year 1 money, if we sign him with bird rights, we're probably looking somewhere around mid 16 million, about 16.5 million in year 1. Super affordable. At that rate, we would even have money left over to go use our taxpayer exception and bring in a contributor. So Ayo, it's a perfect straddle of doubling down on this year and keeping options open.
Love it, man. That's what you have to look forward to if you're a Timberwolves fan. We're going to be covering everything. If something were to happen post trade deadline, big news wise, we'll be on it. Of course, we'll probably be on a live later today. Otherwise, look for us in the future on all your listening platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening. We're on Instagram, X, TikTok. We got Duncan showing the camera that we have Jaden McDaniel still. We did not move him. But this is the Daily Wolves courtside, and we're out. Go Wolves.